The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to LoveLight-Sound Radio, aligning and consciously creating your life with host Susanna Jameson on Transformation Talk Radio. Follow Susanna as she channels dynamic frequency encodings of sound and light that initiate clearing, activation, balancing, and alignment with a new vibration of well-being. Allow your higher vibrational self to unfold on Love Light Sound Radio. Transformation happens here now.
Hey everyone, welcome to Love Light Sound Radio. With me, I get to co-host this. I'm Dr. Pat with Susanna Jameson. And today we have a great show for you. Introducing number 1 of the 5 shifts, aligning with your truth. For those of you out there that are familiar with Susanna's work, you're going to know that today's show is so important to how we change, transform, and live our lives. But when we think about the work that Susanna has done, this idea of aligning and balancing and consciously creating life, you know, we're really struck by how important it is to not just understand what that means, but to enact it every day in our life. You know, as a doctor, a certified classical homeopathic practitioner, holistic, intuitive, when you put it all together, you know, she brings this knowledge, this wisdom as a life health coach to each and every one of us so that we can understand what our potentiality is, but more importantly, how we can be supported spiritually and health consciously. Today is the first of several shows that we're going to talk about what it means to align with your truth and why this is the place to start. Susanna, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. You know, it's great to be talking about, you know, how we can look at our past, look at trauma, and what it does to get us off track with living in our truth, right?
Right. Yeah. And I love your warm welcome, as always. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for being with me on this show. You know, it's just lovely to have your energy and, you know, hold space for all of that, what we're doing. And I really appreciate the body of work you're offering and making available to the world. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. So, today is exciting in that I found, you know, as I've been looking at my clients' evolution over the past 20 plus years and my own healing journey, obviously, you know, what I've come to find is that really it takes 5 shifts that need to happen and need to be made in order for us to transform childhood trauma into self-love. And on this show, I have the pleasure to introduce these shifts, and the first one of the 5, and we're going to get into the other ones on the other show. So stay tuned on that one, because they are mutually supportive. You know, they kind of build on each other and they mutually support each other, because what we really want to get into, or, you know, what life calls us to step into, is alignment with authenticity, right? And we see this all over the board, especially in our leaders today. You know, authentic leadership is something that is so valued and precious, and we are in dire need of, right? Yeah. I don't have to go into details here, but you know what I'm talking about. And so, and every leadership starts with you, right? It's like, where are you not your leader of your life, right? And so aligning with your truth is the first shift that needs to happen, because you're always only your own authority, right? There's no one else who can actually tell you your experience, because there's only one of you. Is only you're it. You're a unique expression of life force energy. There is no one else like you. Now what happens in childhood, due to our, what I call upbringing's domestication or socialization, is that it creates a confusion in us when we're having our experience, and then we're being told by our caregivers, parents, authority figures that that is not acceptable, or we need to get over it, or just don't make such a fuss, or I don't have time for this. Like, as a child, you're like being upset about something, or you're sad, or you're afraid or scared, and your parents can't meet you in that moment, or weren't able at that time for whatever reason. It doesn't make them bad people. It just means they weren't in a space to hold that for you, and really be present with you in that, usually based on their own suffering, their own trauma, and their own experience in their childhood and upbringing. So it's not about blaming someone. It's just about getting an understanding of why what is happening happened to us, right? And so there is this confusion that is happening again, where we're out of truth. It's like we're having this experience that is true for us, but then someone else is telling us repeatedly, no, that's not the way to go, or like, what's wrong with you? Get a grip, right? Or it's like, you should be over this by now, just get your act together, or things like that. And then it's like, since it's authority figures, and at the time our survival really depends on it, right? I mean, we don't really have a choice. It's like either that or die, right? So it creates these subconscious beliefs about us, such as, there's something wrong with me, I must be wrong, or I'm not acceptable the way I am, I should be doing things differently, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, or, and all of this is kind of ingrained because it keeps repeating over time, so that we take this with us into adulthood without questioning it, right? And then we find ourselves operating on the same patterns the way we took them from childhood on, and they are just not the truth, and aligning with our truth is basically getting us back in touch, like getting us back connected to what our truth actually is in any moment.
Yeah. And what I love about this is we're not pointing fingers, we're not blaming. What we're looking at is a situation that happened. And what you're bringing to the forefront is that there's a level of authenticity that each party can stand in. And yet at the same time, we have to really have the true essence of who we are show up. And this is the work that you help us with, whether it is, standing in our enoughness, but more importantly, I love what you said. This discrepancy between what we actually experienced and what others want us to experience is where the disconnect is. And isn't that what you're talking about, is how to stay true to ourselves, but to reconnect to our true essence?
Yeah, and that is exactly it, Pat. You nailed it right there. And I do really want to echo and emphasize this again. It's absolutely not about blaming anyone. It's not about fault finding with others, or, because it doesn't serve us, in that it keeps us in this victim place. If we say like, oh, of course this happened to me because my parents were so bad, and, or what, someone else did this with me, or, I was abused or sexually abused or physically abused or whatever happened. And then it's like, it's their fault, that I'm in this space. It's like, and yes, to a certain extent in your formative years, there is a responsibility for sure, right? And yet today, like 20, 30, 40 years later, you're in a different space, and you're still operating on that notion that you're powerless, and that's not true, and basically, right, the work I'm doing is about getting you back in touch with your power, and that's part of a different shift also, but it really ties into that, as you get to align with your truth and stand in it fearlessly and unapologetically, being able to voice it, speak it.
Well, part of this today is really not just looking at this from the perspective of, something that may have happened that we may or may not even remember. What we know is that what's showing up in life is we're not able to move forward in the full expression of who we are. And, part of today's show is to talk about how that trauma just carries forward with us from different phases of our lives. And, later on, you're going to be talking with us about how it shows up. Many of the times we do not know it's even there. And it shows up in experiences at work or experiences in our love life or just in our happiness. And, this is really for us today to open up the door to the conversation of how we don't feel enough. Sometimes that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's often what it comes down to in my experience too. And, as I said, there are variations or what I call different flavors of the same theme. It's not enough, not lovable, basically not acceptable, not worthy, not deserving. I have to earn love. That's a good one also. It's like, I have to do to receive love, so, and really it comes down back to self-love, back to finding yes, I'm absolutely lovable in every aspect I show up, including the shadows, and that is another aspect that's often overlooked. Like, being lovable is identified, especially if there's a strong religious or dogmatic background, as having to show up a certain way. Right, like certain prerequisites, like how we're supposed to show up in society. And again, we're coming back to domestication and socialization, right? And the pressure that puts on us, and where we're kind of selling ourselves in order to be liked or accepted or loved by others. Like we can't be our true selves because they might reject us. Right. So there's like a lot of fear running on a daily basis, pretty much. And there's the shift really that needs to happen, that our main modus of operation is coming from love versus from fear. It's very tricky to spot that when it's so subconsciously ingrained, and we're not aware of when that is showing up or how that is showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a short break because when we come back, we're going to be talking with Susanna about taking these things, this trauma, into our adult life. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, any part of our adult life. It could be early adult life. It could be later adult life. But, why is it still running our lives? Why is this trauma that operates in our subconscious, why is it still running our lives? And later on, we're going to talk with you about what you can do about it. I'm Dr. Pat. Susanna Jameson. We'll be right back with the show. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm so thrilled to have Susanna join us here today. The body of work that she has said yes to, what she does in the world, how she helps countless people, has to do with her ability to tap into something that many of us cannot see, not see for ourselves, for sure. And, we're talking today about, introducing number one of 5 of these shifts that she works with, aligning with your truth. Before we talk about, what it is that has us take, Susanna, these childhood traumas into adulthood, before we do that, a couple things I want to make sure we mention. And that is that, there's a workshop, that there are workshops that you do. And let's talk about the free workshop. Let's talk about what you're planning to help folks move beyond their stuckness.
Yeah, thank you for that. Great that you point this out, Pat. And the workshop, the free workshop I offer, you can access on my website. It's one of the free gifts, and it's really simple. You just register for it, and then you get a link, and you can choose time slots that work for you. And basically, in this workshop, you get a profound understanding of where I'm coming from with my work. It gives you a good sense of who I am to an extent, if you haven't gotten that yet. So I get a little more about that. And then also it speaks to the 5 shifts, so you can learn all about this in this comprehensive workshop, and that gives you an idea if this resonates with you or not. And then that you have the opportunity to book a session with me if you feel called to do so. And but it gives you already an understanding where I'm coming from. So just a bit more in-depth knowledge. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. Before the break, we were talking about, and then during the break, we were talking about the fact that, we just kind of bring along with us all of the heaviness, all of the things that happen. Sometimes we realize we're doing that, Susanna, and a lot of times we don't. So the question really is, why are these traumas? Why is it that they're still running our lives and doing it subconsciously in a way we don't even know?
Right. Yeah. So, here's what I found, Pat, with observing this over the past, as I said, over 20 years now. It's really, it starts in childhood, of course, right? And the thing is that because usually the pattern is so deeply ingrained and it has a very strong emotional connection, right? Because it's coming from our first environment that we associate love with. Like, even if it's perverted, this is like with our parents, even if they abuse us, even if there's violence, I mean, that's our safe space, right? This is our survival space, which means it creates this notion of, okay, this is what love looks like, even if it's abusive, because that's all we take away. Plus, we're also obviously subconsciously taking on what we're observing, our parents to role model for us. So if there is a violent, abusive relationship with the parents going on, or it doesn't even have to be violent or even physical abusive. It can be just neglect. Someone not being emotionally available is devastating to a child. It's devastating. Yeah. You don't even have to beat them if they're not, And for me, Pat, it always floors me, when we have this preconceived notion of, children being brought up in, so to speak, advantageous households, like, privileged upbringing, like silver spoon or whatever. Fact is, at the end of the day, this child also has the pressure of having to go to Harvard, maybe, even if they don't want to, or, they're getting denied their true desires and being kind of forced into, ways, choices in their lives that they wouldn't make for themselves, and being under the constant pressure to have to show up a certain way, to be, to present themselves so that they don't embarrass their parents, or that they, that they don't cast blame or shame on their parents. To an extent, I mean, I have people I work with, they don't dare get out of a heavily abusive marriage because they're afraid their family is going to reject them.
Right.
So it's like, where do you start? Right? I mean, where do you start? And it's this really, really profoundly ingrained belief that we have about ourselves as, what we took that to mean about ourselves, that when we were treated that way as children, let's say we were neglected emotionally, no one had time for us, we were like, just don't bother me right now, or you know what I mean, right? And sometimes we even let's say, in situations I've also had, it's like, again, more neglect, like let's say the mother has postpartum stress disorder, postpartum depression. And she's in her room basically and not available for the child. It's not because she doesn't want to, but because she can't. She just can't physically, because of her health situation. But here's the child, no mom, right? And so what we take that to mean about, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not lovable, right? It's like, my mom is not there for me. She doesn't care about me, right? Well, that woman is basically not functional, right? And that's not,
right.
But we can't see this, obviously, and we're not in a place as children to make sense of that. We just take away, oh, mommy is not available. That it must mean something is wrong with me. I'm not lovable, or she doesn't care about me. And obviously, if this is like your default, if that's your baseline or foundation of your upbringing, this is what you're taking with you. Because here's the thing, I mean, there is nowhere in our society, and hasn't been for the past decades, and still isn't, that in our communities or in our schools or educational systems, we're taught otherwise. It's not brought to our attention. Even in therapy, it's not. Because most therapists are working on their own shit, excuse my French. Right? So that's just how it is. And I'm not blaming therapists. I've been to therapy myself. It can be really helpful to have someone to talk to once a week. Right? But that's on a mental level. It's not integrated, And obviously, I'm very much generalizing. And please, there are certainly great therapists out there. Don't hear me wrong there. And I'm not saying don't do therapy. Again, you're your own judge. If it works for you, go for it. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not judging. I'm just sharing my observation, and I'm questioning the efficacy of certain situations. That's
well, I think what we're talking about is, like you said, not judging one way or the other, but there are situations in every childhood, and the situations are going to nurture or they're not. And when you look at the range, and now it's just coming to the forefront here, at least in this country, of the level of abuse that is happening in families and in livelihood and in households. I mean, it is staggering. Today, another one. And yet, for those of us that lived in families and childhood, books written on adult children of alcoholics, how many decades ago was that thing done? Mm-hmm. That hasn't changed. And yet, we are just now, through your work, understanding we can't just suck it up. We can't just move on. Healing is required. Mm-hmm. And this first shift, this thing you're talking about, this notion of truth, is so essential to the core of who we are as spiritual and human beings, that if we don't address this number one, as you call it, we're not going to be able to take those steps forward. Isn't that sort of the beautiful opening and invitation of your work? I mean, isn't this acknowledgement, and may I call it witnessing on your part for people that haven't had a witness, maybe sometimes 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
So important for people.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're doing it. You're saying, you know what? Yep, might have had this, might have had that. Let me tell you, we're here to let you know we hear you and we see you in that journey.
Right.
Aren't you also sharing a piece of this as well, Susanna, which says, we can change this now?
Yeah, there is an aspect, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, Pat, because what I'm noticing, as obviously, you're aware that our human species is evolving, all of us, right, gradually, anyways, right, and it's part of the evolution that I find people who come to me more and more come with this, I have this inner sense that I'm not in integrity. I'm out of alignment. I'm not living my truth, and I'm afraid to speak my truth. That's what I'm hearing more and more. And they have this inner yearning and that inner desire to be able to be in that space, to express themselves fearlessly and unapologetically. They just don't know how to do it. They just don't know how to do it. And that's what I help them with, And it's just huge. And I mean, amazing results. As I said, as we talked on the break, it's like week 2, it's like major shifts. You don't recognize the person. It's like,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
well, and we're sitting here because we're actually seeing it happen. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have something really special for you all today. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the many, many ways it shows up in our lives. See, I think part of the illusion in our society, and especially with my background in psychology, is that we think it has to show up in atrocious behavior, and it doesn't. It's subtle when it shows up. It's those of you listening, you know how hard it is and the pain that you're experiencing with things in your life, relationships that don't work out, this sense of always trying to, strive for something better. When we come back, we're not only going to address how it shows up, but we're going to give you a way to repair this. Stay tuned. Susanna Jameson, something special today on the show. For those of you out there, if you want to chime in, you all know how to do it. 1-800-930-2819. We'll be right back. Wow, everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. Listen, Love, Light, Sound Radio, Susanna Jameson joining me here today. I'm Dr. Pat, aligning, balancing, and consciously creating your life. Susanna is brilliant at what she does to really get us to point one, to the starting point, to get us to the starting line. And a lot of times we don't even know there's a starting line. And this one topic here is one of 5 of the shifts she works with folks on, and it is aligning with your truth. This is so important, where for many of us, a large part of our lives we go through, and we ultimately stuff our truth. We deny our truth. I mean, we watch it in people like Oprah, who finally, after decades, comes out and says, yes, this happened to me in my childhood. But not everybody can be on the Oprah stage. And that's what today's show is. It's about all of you, all of us that are going through our lives, and we're not living our lives consciously and creating it the way we want it to be. And so for today, Susanna, we're gonna talk now about how does it show up. But before we do, one more time, how can people find out more about you? How can they work with you? How can they tap into the healing nature of what you do?
Yeah, thank you for that, Pat. And a good way to get in touch with my work is, for one, my website, SusannaJameson.com, SusannaJameson.com. And on that website, there is actually a special free gift I have for you today. So there is a free workshop I offer, and it gives you an understanding of what my work is about and gives more in-depth information about the 5 shifts we are touching on these radio show episodes. And so, it shows you where I'm coming from in my approach to healing, and that it's a holistic approach, and that it's about you as a person, And so this is, again, on my website, SusannaJameson.com, and on the homepage, you have access to this free workshop. You just need to register and can choose a spot. All yours.
Wow, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. During the break, we were talking about the fact that, there are things that show up as us in life. We show up. And I want to use the example we were talking about during the break. There's somebody that, is in your circle of friends, and something happens in your mind that is so trivial, right? Just absolutely, my gosh, and you're watching a friend get frustrated to the point of almost a point of anxiety. And you're looking at this person and thinking, I don't understand it. Why, Mary? You're so frustrated, now angry, now just lashing out over this little small thing. How many times do we do that, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a small thing to Mary, right? Mary may not even know that it's not a small thing. And that's just one way that it shows up. Tell us a little bit more about what you've discovered about the ways that this shows up in people's lives.
Yeah, I love your example here, Pat. It really shows what I call it. It's so insidious, because we're not even aware of our triggers. And then we find ourselves reacting in situations where at time we might even think like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? And why did I do this? And then on top of that, then there's guilt and blame and shaming for reacting to a situation that was triggered because of a subconscious belief we have about ourselves, and we're just not aware of it. So we're still operating on the same defense mechanism, or the same wanting to get us out of a situation that is naturally triggered because we haven't healed yet. That's really what happens. And it's devastating. I'm talking to a lot of absolutely, sweet women, like huge hearts, like caregivers and whatnot. I'm absolute sweethearts. Usually they have a tendency to overgive. They have a tendency to self-sacrifice. That is coming from not good enough. I have to earn love, right? And so to exhaustion. And they can't get themselves out of it. And they don't know why they're doing it. They can see that it's not healthy. And they can also see that they're not happy at the end of the day. Plus, they keep attracting abusive relationships, like people who take advantage of them, right? And that is, in my experience, because energetically they're giving out that energy of, I'm your doormat. When you're coming from, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, and, I have to earn love, it's like, can you please love me? Am I doing enough? Can I do more for you? That is basically what is running, although we're not aware of it. But people, like, a partner will pick up on that energy and say, great, here's someone who's going to do all of this for me. Great. She's not even asking anything for herself. Beautiful. I'm just going to be, great. So basically it's the complementary energy we're attracting in that, but not being aware of it. Right. And so until we have shifted that for ourselves, and until we have really moved through these patterns and resolved them, we will keep attracting the same scenario. That's why we keep having the same relationships. It's like, I thought that one was going to be different. Well, guess not, So that is one thing. Another one is, as we talked in the break, Pat, with work scenarios, like really successful women, overachievers, like absolutely successful in their business, go-getters, like a really independent spirit, like leadership personalities. And often, what I found is there is unhappiness also because there is no fulfillment in private life. They live themselves out in their work life, and they're really good at that. And it helps them to overlook that they actually would love to have a loving relationship. But the thing is, like, with their being independent, there is that notion of, I don't need anyone. I'm like, there's a guardedness, where it's like, because there has been a hurt, deep hurt originally, it's like, there's a protective of, I don't want you to be close to, I'm not allowing you to get close. It's like, I don't want to get hurt again. Right. And so then they put it on, exhausting themselves in work, being successful there, to not look at the unhappiness, the unfulfilledness as a woman, right? And it's just another way of numbing yourself out. Some do alcohol, some do drugs, some do food, some do shopping, and overworking, and that to that extent, where work becomes your identification as being worthy. Where you identify your self-worth with how much you're achieving.
Yeah. And, here's the thing. The bar has already been raised so high in society anyway. So let's just start there. Generally speaking, the bar is raised high. So how is it raised high? Let's talk about that for a minute. It's raised high, social media, what we're supposed to look like, advertising, all of the above. It already raises the bar. Now you have another layer on that where you have your own internal bar raiser based on this childhood and the trauma that happened, which already says to you in your subconscious, man, you're just not enough. Now you add that on, and we run so fast that we're not quite sure at any given point in time why we're even doing it anymore.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that you're pointing it out, because obviously in our society today, with all the, interaction, like social media, all the input, like constant stimulus, that's also kind of accelerating our having to respond to what's going on in life. It just keeps us being on autopilot.
Right.
It's like there's no time. It's no time. No time to get in touch, no time to check in. It's like, don't have time to.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, if it was already bad when we were kids, right, and parents didn't have time, I mean, look at this like now,
Right.
it's like with the pacing and everything. And it again, obviously it helps us not get in touch with the pain. It's a great
That's right.
escapism,
Right. Well, one of the things I want to do, I want to go ahead and skip the break because, we've got something very important to do, and I want to make sure we allocate plenty of time to do that, Susanna. And
Okay.
that is to jump right into talking about, listen, if you have a sense of what we're talking about today, please know that repair can happen. And that's what we're talking about now. You know, is there a way to repair the damage? Is there a way to repair the trauma? And I want to have you share that experience because you have created a way. And we're actually, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can feel the audience energy right now, and and how they're relating to what we're talking about because you and I don't have a judgment on this, right? Is there a way to repair this, Susanna?
Yeah, I mean, I see this pretty much on a daily basis in the work I'm doing with my clients. It's tremendously rewarding to see how they shift. And obviously, they do have to do the work. I've created the outline and the container for them for healing to happen. And there's a lot to it. It's very comprehensive. However, you have to show up. It's the same like if you wanted to lose weight, let's say, I can design the perfect diet plan for you. I can cook for you. I can shuttle you to the gym. I can give you the weight plan, but it's still you who has to get on the treadmill and you who has to lift the weights and you who has to eat the food. I can't do this for you. Right. And I have energetic support where you don't have to do anything. That's the good news. And that is really accelerating the healing process. And at the same time, in order for you to make that yours, to fully integrate it, you have to show up and you have to do the work. So that's definitely required. I'm here to meet you every single step you're in. If you're 1,000% in, I'm 1,000% at your side. I hold you accountable. I'm with you every single step of your way and your individual way. Yes, I work with a lot of different people, but everyone is different. And I'm always going to cater to your particular needs and to your particular life circumstances. That's just where I'm coming from. Yeah.
And many people that are listening, some people may be familiar with the body of your work, but, others may not. Today we're talking about the show, but also the show is Love, Light, Sound Radio. And there are various ways that you work with people to activate the healing process. Tell us a little bit about that. This is important that folks know that what we're looking at in the world today is a way to shift this energy, is a way to create a shift that allows us to begin the alignment with our truth, but more importantly, beyond aligning with our truth, standing in our truth, healing and repairing. And that's really exciting for folks today, Susanna.
Yeah, it is. And yeah. Do you want me to talk a bit more about the energetic healing parts, or?
What I'd love to do is I would love for our audience to experience what that might feel like for them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So one of the modalities I use is the healing frequency I channel personally that comes through in the moment. And as the theme of today's show, or the subject is aligning with your truth, I'm just going to see what's coming through here to support you in finding that resonance for yourself. Right. Sharanam Marona, Naraya, Mana, Arayana, Mana, Arayana, Marana, Ya.
Wow. I hope everyone out there just take a moment to take it in. You know, Susanna, the thing that I'm most struck by is the power, the energetic vibration, the changing of the patterns in our lives that go so deep. They're deeply rooted, their beliefs. And, this today and what folks got to experience today truly does open up a door for people. So thank you so very much to that. We're really talking about getting to the root of it, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what I love about these specific frequencies, and that's my own experience also, and when you see some of the testimonials on my website, the beauty of that is that you don't have to do anything for this healing modality. You just have to be open to receiving, really. And it is filtered through your higher self and then goes straight to the heart. And that is one aspect I really love about this particular support, is because we tend to be so much in our minds, right? And so it can't help to get us into our heart. And so that is really where the first healing connection and the aligning with truth starts, right? With where we're coming from, our heart. And that's basically what it supports. And the beauty also of that is it's dynamic. And that means it meets you where you're at. Again, your higher self knows best what needs to shift for you. And that's on the subtle realm, aligning you with that, what is needed in the moment. So, yeah, just a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I want to just take a minute and make sure that everybody has your website, and please tell us about, the upcoming workshop you're doing.
Yeah, so website is SusannaJameson.com, really simple, just my name.com. And I do have a free workshop on my website that is designed to get you an idea of where I'm coming from with my body of work, and how that is that I work with the 5 shifts and why they're important, and how you can, access them for yourself, or what needs to happen for you to be able to shift your life. And when I mean shift your life, I'm seeing this again with my clients on a daily basis. It's like, it's total life transformation. And it is for yours for life. It's not like a Band-Aid, or it's not like placating here, or it's not for the time we work together, but you're taking this away for you. And that's the way it's designed. I don't want you dependent on me. I want you flying. So as soon as, as fast as possible. So that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, I love this, because this is the first of 5 that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. I want to just, tap into something you said earlier, and that is honoring one's truth at all times, doing that, being able to connect with that. It really does facilitate and open up the door to aligning that energy, that energy we not only want in life, but that energy then becomes this magnetized field of attracting that which we really want, not that which we think we should settle for. And isn't that a big part of the healing process as well?
Yeah, and I love that you're bringing this up, because Pat and I remember we've talked about this, I think, on the last show briefly also. It's like this whole thing about positive affirmations, and the secret and all of this. And Abraham Hicks' work, and he's actually more speaking to this. But the thing is, like, mantras, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great to have positive affirmations. However, as long as there are subconscious beliefs running that are, patterns that are still ingrained in you, that have that notion of not worthy, not deserving, not lovable, not acceptable, that is always going to take precedence over anything we're trying to put on top. It's like we're trying to sugarcoat something to not feel the pain. It's like it is there, and then we're like trying to be in denial about it to make us feel good. And that might help for a moment, but it's not resolving the issue. Now you can get in resonance with what you want to attract. However, that requires that you come from a space of love, right? It's like when you're in that frequency, in that vibration of self-love, obviously you can actually match what you want in your life, right? Because there is nothing that is holding you back, nothing that's blocking you, nothing that's keeping you small or not your authentic self, because your authentic self is love essence, in my experience, right? So once you tap into that, it's limitless, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is such an important conversation because all of us, I believe, we don't sign up to stay stuck in our lives, Susanna. We don't do that. You know what I mean? We don't wake up and get born and say, I want to live a limited life. We just don't do it. And a lot of times, we don't even know we're doing it. And that's part of the work that you're doing. So thank you for today. I want to ask you one last thing. What's your personal message? What would you like to leave all of us with today?
I really would invite everyone to find where is that showing up in your life? Where do you notice you are out of alignment? And what do you want to do about getting there? Like, how important is it for you to be in alignment with your truth? Mm-hmm. Where are you not showing up as your fullest? And basically through that, cheating us out of your gift. Because this is what it really is about. If you don't live your purpose, if you're not giving your gift, you're cheating us out of the experience of you.
Wow, I love it. So beautiful. Susanna Jameson. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Please, please, please know that if you've missed any part of this, it'll play today. Susanna, thank you for being such a shining light in the world. Thank you for being you and helping so many people.
Thank you, Pat, for making this happen. Appreciate it.
Wow, we're going to take a short break, everyone. More to come here on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to Love, Light, Sound Radio with Susanna Jameson on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next month as Susanna explores how to align, balance, and consciously create your life. For more information on Susanna Jameson and her work, or to listen to past shows, visit her website at susannajameson.com.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.